Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Today we're going to take a look at Venus entering the sign of Aries, immediately making a conjunction to Neptune in the sign of Aries. I believe that these first transits to Neptune in the sign of Aries are giving us a feel for what Neptune in Aries is all about. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And I'm also going to be sharing with you one of my favorite passages written by the famous astrologer Liz Greene on Venus-Neptune contacts and extrapolating from some of the points that she makes to offer you some insights today. I hope that you will enjoy this and that it will give you some good things to watch for as the Venus-Neptune contact comes through this week. So before we get into it, remember to like and subscribe, share your comments and reflections. All of this stuff really helps the channel to grow. We do we take a look at all of the analytics of the channel. We find that a lot of people watch regularly but are not yet subscribed. That simple little click of the subscribe button helps us immensely. So we really appreciate it. You can find transcripts of any of these daily talks on my website, which is nightlightastrology.com. Right now, we are in the midst of promotion mode for my upcoming class. We have 4 years of professional curriculum at Nightlight, the Nightlight School. You can go to the courses page, click on first year course to learn more about the first year program that begins on June 22nd. This is called Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. It's our first year class in ancient Hellenistic astrology. All of our programs include a synthesis between ancient Hellenistic approaches and modern archetypal and psychological approaches. You'll find that it's a nice blend of both. If you've never studied Hellenistic before, this is your starting point. Love to study with a new group of people coming up here soon. At the bottom of the page, you'll find the early bird enrollment options. These sales are available until May 15th, so take advantage of them while they are there. You can also check out the need-based tuition option. If you need a sliding scale within which to work with, that is there for you. We know that a lot of people are hurting financially or might be in between jobs or whatever the case might be. We want to make sure that astrology education is always accessible for people of various backgrounds and financial constraints. We believe that spiritual topics like this should be accessible, and that's a big part of our business plan, our model. So check that out. I was thinking today about the reasons that someone might have for wanting to study astrology, and I thought I'd mention 3 before we get into our content for the day. The number one reason I think that our program is like, if you can say yes to this, then I think our program is a good match for you. Number one is that if you're someone who can't help but think, see, perceive the world through an astrological lens, but you've not yet had a formal kind of apprenticeship-based immersion into study and learning, then I think this course is perfect for you because it's probably the case that astrology is going to be one of your spiritual guidance systems for this lifetime. And there's nothing better than learning the language at a deeper, more advanced level, so that in addition to taking in content from the creators you like or the astrologers you like, you also really become your own astrologer. That journey is something that Nightlight is set up to help people with. Number 2 is that you're looking for a guided, structured approach. It takes guesswork out. There's so much information out there, and there's not like one right or wrong way necessarily to do astrology. There are many forms of astrology, but it really helps rather than making your way through so many different sources and streams of information to come through a program. We have 4 years of curriculum, again, that's guided, structured, coherent, and lineage and apprenticeship based, which means you get a consistent experience through all 4 years and a way that as a practitioner, I've shaped my understanding and my approach that you can take and work with on your own or be creative with. And number 3 would be that you're looking for a lineage that you resonate with and a spiritual focus. Everything in astrology from the Nightlight perspective is focused first on the underlying spiritual beliefs that ancient astrologers held from various different religious and spiritual perspectives, but broadly speaking, the spiritual focus is key at Nightlight. Also, if you resonate with my work, then you're really going to like the programs because you're getting the heart of all of my best creative work and intellectual work and spiritual focus distilled in the curriculum. So anyway, I hope to see some of you there soon. At the end of today's video, there's an informational video tagged on. You can learn more about the program. Can't wait to study with a new group of people. I'm looking forward to it. On that note, let's turn our attention to the real-time clock and take a look at Venus and Neptune coming together today. So you are going to see the 2 planets. This is Tuesday, April 29th. And if we take this forward just a touch, I'm going to move this forward into April 30th, that's Wednesday, you'll see Venus enters Aries and is at that 0-degree Aries mark, a very powerful degree marker in the zodiac for the initiation of new things. It is the degree that marks the spring equinox in the tropical zodiacal form of measurement. So, a very powerful starting point for Venus tomorrow. If we take this forward just a little bit more, we're going to see that the two planets come together by Friday, May 2nd. So this transit is not technically coming through until Friday. Now, for this week, we are looking at your astrological overview for the month of May, where we do spend a little time talking about Venus and Neptune. And then we're looking at horoscopes for the month of May, where we focus mostly on Saturn's entrance into Aries later in the month of May. And then Friday, I'm doing Pluto retrograde horoscopes. So today, we're spending some time with Venus-Neptune, although it doesn't come through until the end of the week. So just note that this transit will really be building Wednesday through Friday. We're prepping for it today. So the May 2nd is your date of interest here. And you'll be experiencing the separation of these two planets within 3 degrees all the way until about May 7th, next Wednesday. So give it a full week, Wednesday to Wednesday, and you'll maybe be feeling the effects throughout that entire period. Now, what I want to do today is share with you about a page and a half of a portion of Liz Greene's book on the astrological Neptune. Now, if you don't know Liz Greene, she is one of our great modern masters of psychological astrology. She was a student of Carl Jung, contemporary with James Hillman, and really is a treasure in our astrological tradition. I have learned so much from reading basically everything she's written. This was especially when I first got started. The past 5-6 years, I've spent a lot more time with ancient traditional astrology, Indian astrology, but I always come back to Liz Greene. So this book, if you've never seen it, is called The Astrological Neptune and the Quest for Redemption. If you want a really deep dive into the planet Neptune from an astral or a psychological perspective, I highly, highly recommend this book. It is a go-to as a reference in lectures I've planned and talks I've given for years. There's a brief passage that she has on Neptune and Venus combinations, and I'd like to read it to you today since it's about, I guess, 3 pages. And I want to, as we go along, I'm going to pause and offer some reflections of my own that sort of just dovetail right off from what she's saying. So here it is, and I hope that you will enjoy this. If you're newer to my channel, once in a while, I like to just bring in excerpts from really masterful texts because I like people to know about the great astrologers out there. Many of you have probably read Liz Greene, or maybe even read this book. For those who haven't, I think that this is very powerful to expose people to. Neptune, Venus. I pursued a maiden and clasped a reed. Gods and men, we are all deluded thus. It breaks in our bosom, and then we bleed. The contacts of Neptune and Venus are the most romantic in the colloquial as well as the historical sense of the word. Venus does not describe love on the emotional level. Rather, it portrays an ideal of love which embodies what the individual perceives as beautiful and worthwhile. This is really important to mention right away because one of the things that comes through when Venus and Neptune get together is romantic idealism. Now, romantic idealism under a Venus-Neptune contact, for me, you guys have heard me say this before on my channel, makes for really great date nights. Like my wife and I always seem to land in really fun, memorable date night experiences and memories that we make when Venus-Neptune are together. I think that's because both of us, my wife and I, are both sort of romantic in our sensibilities. And so we end up feeling like our date nights approximate something close to a romantic ideal when Venus and Neptune are together. You know, there's always the chance at the same time that a Venus-Neptune contact will hold out what you have in life against the standard of an ideal and make you feel like something is sorely lacking. That can be really disillusioning and difficult. We may struggle to live with the reality of mundane life relative to the romantic idealism that's present with the Venus-Neptune contact. But this is what Liz Greene goes on to talk about. Venusian relationships allow us to discover our values, what one loves, one secretly is. And it is these qualities which form the bedrock of a sense of personal worth. Aspecting other inner planets, Venus will find its vision of beauty embodied in the people, objects, and experiences of everyday life. The expression of individual values through personal taste creates feelings of contentment, and each day can provide happiness through the pleasure of the senses and the delights of human companionship. This is interesting because in ancient astrology, the fifth house, it was called the joy of Venus, is associated with that pleasure which is innate to the soul. We associate this with creativity, but that's not exactly what the fifth house's original meaning was all about. The fifth house was called the joy of Venus, the house of good fortune. In Indian astrology, it is a Dharma house that is said to be the joy derived from one's Dharma. What that means is what makes you happy that you can't change because it's just fundamental to who you are. Discovering that, we might say, is a process of creative individuation. By reaching into what makes us essentially us, we tap into what makes us happy, what makes us feel fulfilled creatively, romantically, sensually. But this is different from just saying it's a house of creativity in some generic sense, the fifth house. So what I love about what Liz Greene is saying in this little passage is that Venus really helps us understand what is innately pleasurable and valuable to us, therefore bringing us some level of satisfaction while we're living a life on Earth. The expression of individual values through personal taste creates feelings of contentment, and each day can provide happiness through the pleasure of the senses and the delights of human companionship. Neptune, unlike Venus, tends toward chronic unhappiness, for nothing in this world, however beautiful, can compensate for the lost waters of paradise. Two characteristic manifestations of Venus-Neptune are divine discontent in matters of love and interference with the capacity for personal happiness. If the lover is not perfect, one feels betrayed. If the environment is not perfect, one becomes depressed. If society is not perfect, one despairs. If the body is not perfect, one longs to shrink it, enlarge it, facelift it, disguise it. Or, if all else fails, destroy it, for anything less than the seamless beauty of Eden cannot be born. So she's going a little heavy, right? But Venus-Neptune, again, because Venus-Neptune will hold out the earthly and relatively embodied world of pleasure, happiness, beauty, and value up against the ideal of paradise, something so transcendently perfect in Neptune, that sometimes the feeling of chronic dissatisfaction or disappointment is common for Venus-Neptune contacts. It is one of the most predictable transits that I've seen when people struggle with their marriage, or they struggle with infidelity, or betrayals, or a feeling of boredom in love. At the same time, just to be fair and push it in the opposite direction, people will often find that the romantic sentiments are heightened and are sort of peaking and holding out new possibilities for things that are maybe even more enjoyable. So there can be Venus-Neptune enhancements. I think Liz kind of underestimates those in this section, but she's not wrong either. They can be very problematic. Venus-Neptune is often associated with sexual magnetism and seductiveness. Examples such as Brigitte Bardot and Marilyn Monroe abound in the world of film. But having the kind of charisma which allows one to be all things to all people may not be a promising augury for future stability and contentment. The individual may unconsciously, identify with the victim redeemer through his or her sexuality, seeking to discover a solid sense of self-worth by offering himself or herself to those who've been wounded by life. So the love that can redeem, the love that can save, the love that can heal, or the sex or the pleasure or the beauty that can redeem or heal or save. There's a powerful healing capacity with Venus and Neptune when it comes to everything sensual, relational, physical, romantic. And yet, insofar as we, it's a kind of a double-edged sword, because the thing that we're trying to redeem may not be in some sense redeemable any more than death is avoidable in the material world. Like, there are blemishes, there are edges, there are there's a kind of harshness and there's a tentativeness and a what do I want to say, like a vulnerability or fragility to life itself. And Venus-Neptune contacts will often try to save or redeem or heal or make perfect something that we're having a hard time accepting for its flaws. And so another example of Neptune-Venus contacts will be those, sometimes people will go through with cosmetic procedures and they'll be obsessed during Neptune-Venus contacts with trying to improve their looks to the point where they end up looking unnatural and maybe even worse than they did prior to having cosmetic procedures done. I have no judgments against whatever people do. I'm not like, I'm a very live and let live kind of person in that respect. I don't judge people for having cosmetic procedures, but it is something to watch for with Venus-Neptune. It's like, I can save you in a romantic relationship, or if I have this procedure, it will save me. And the underlying issue is never addressed. And then the chronic thing becomes distorted and we start trying to live with a kind of delusion and we live in a state of denial that can be very common for Venus-Neptune, unfortunately. So these are all, again, just things to remember. So let's go on here. Venus-Neptune may also be drawn toward those who seem to offer redemption. It's the aspect par excellence of the pursuit of the unobtainable. Ideals of love may be conjoined with themes of suffering and sacrifice, and only a relationship involving pain and expiation is felt to be authentic. I remember when I was in my 20s, I have a Venus-Neptune trine in my natal chart, so thankfully they get along relatively well. But when I was in my early 20s, I really used to think that relationships that didn't involve a lot of hard, deep processing and work all the time were not real. And if I dated someone and everything was stable, that was suspicious to me. This is a reflection of my own healing process that I was going through, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, and coming out of my early 20s when I dealt with a phase of addiction. So that kind of codependent dynamic is quite common for people to have to work through with Venus-Neptune, where you go, it doesn't need to be heartbreaking and Shakespearean for it to be real. Not that heartbreaking Shakespearean deep inner work isn't part of life or part or an aspect of a meaningful relationship, but Venus-Neptune may kind of hold out the illusion that it's only real if it involves a lot of suffering. And as a Taurus rising, I have learned to resist that narrative. Anyhow, the poetry of courtly love is never far from Venus-Neptune's dreams, nor is the Oedipal triangle of courtly love ever far from Venus-Neptune's psychology. Venus concerns rivalry as much as harmony, because one cannot define one's own worth without contrasting oneself with others. The triangle-forming propensities of Venus are as evident in life as in the goddess myths, but the common or garden variety Oedipal triangle, which, if we are to believe Freud, is an everyday part of childhood experience, looks rather more dramatic in the waters of Neptune's world. The parent whom one seeks to claim is the divine source, and the Oedipal sin is not mere illicit erotic desire, but a longing through fusion for the omnipotence of the Godhead. As Plotinus once wrote, our concern is not to be sinless, but to be God. Venus-Neptune does not desire a mortal partner in whose mirror its own values can be reflected. It seeks union with the deity. Only here can absolute beauty and perfection be found. I have found that Venus-Neptune contacts are not only common when idealization is happening or codependent dynamics within a relationship or an inability to live with the faults and flaws of worldly existence, but also that there is a projection of something of a divine, transcendent, perfect nature onto things that we value religiously, spiritually, artistically. It's not uncommon for someone to find a band they love under a strong Neptune-Venus contact and say to themselves, this band is God. Not like consciously like that, but, or for a lover, or also for, maybe a religious or spiritual tradition. I've seen many clients over the years who absolutely fell in love with yoga and started seeing it as their salvation, along with their yoga studio and yoga community during a Neptune-Venus contact. It's not that there's something wrong with that necessarily, but it's almost a guarantee that that will come back down to earth after the transit is over, meaning they'll find faults and flaws and limits to how far yoga can take them compared to the intoxication that we feel when we first encounter a new spiritual path. And it really gets us high and it's really promising. There's nothing really wrong with falling in love and getting swept up into a Venus-Neptune space. It's just sometimes when it comes to taking the projections back, we go through turbulence. For example, in order to take my projection back at the yoga studio, I have to make one of the teachers the devil, and then the studio is the devil, right? So it becomes like a hard binary. This was God, now it's the devil, or now I demonize it. We do have to be careful of that seduction to go in a complete opposite direction when coming back down to earth, because we still, in a sense, can't just accept the earth. So anyhow, because the perfection of Eden shimmers behind Venus-Neptune's aspirations in love, physical perfection or lack thereof may become a major theme in the individual's relationship pattern. Venus-Neptune may experience an unwilling but inexorable turnoff as soon as the partner is discovered to be physically flawed. Sometimes disillusionment can follow only one sexual encounter. Sometimes it develops over time as the partner shows those small but unmistakable signs of aging which challenge the immortality of paradise. The fantasy of perfect sexual union is often so far removed from the mechanics of the physical act that the latter may prove a deep disappointment. Thus, disillusionment is never far away, nor is the hurt and anger of a partner who cannot understand why he or she is being rejected simply because of existing in a physical body. I remember early in my practice, this was a long time ago now, so more than 10 years ago, that I worked with a man who, nicest guy, he had a really hard Venus-Neptune opposition in his birth chart. And I've used this with permission in lectures I've given before and everything like that. But he struggled with sex addiction. And the way he described it was really heartbreaking. He said, in my head, when I meet a woman, I've fallen in love with her and I'm picturing my whole life with her. And as soon as, and the power of that fantasy has this great seductive power. Like I've been able to sleep with a lot of women because I have a lot of charisma and romantic, I guess, attractiveness that comes through how strongly I start desiring this woman. And even if she's sort of uncertain if it's real or not because of how strong and instant it is, you know, oftentimes the power of that attraction would just overwhelm women. I'd sleep with them. And then the next day I'm completely uninterested. And then the pattern repeats. And this was like hundreds of partners. Okay. So like a big, and the person ended up going into a 12-step program. That's a Venus-Neptune opposition that was being activated around the time that this person went into rehab for sex addiction. And, you know, our conversation was not so much about that because they were already on the rehab part of their journey. But I found it really interesting and took note of the Venus-Neptune contact that was activated at the time that the addiction was being addressed. And this person was having to recognize that I have this powerful ability to project. And then on some level, once sex has been, you know, you've consummated the relationship in an act of sexual intercourse, then all of a sudden I see them as mortal. That's a tough pattern. And I think I don't know because I'm not any expert on sex addiction, but I imagine that there are probably similar dynamics at work in other, other people who have experienced sex addiction. Anyway, Venus-Neptune, oh, here we go. The fantasy of perfect sexual union is often so far removed from the mechanics of the physical act that the latter may prove a deep disappointment. So anyway, she goes on to talk about the perfection that Venus-Neptune seeks. However, it may be glimpsed in art. And it is here that the aspect expresses one of its greatest resources. Even if the individual is not musically talented, there's usually a deep feeling for music, which touches one's longing for absolute harmony and fulfills many of Venus-Neptune's most insistent yearnings. Poetry, painting, fiction, drama may conjure the lost Eden. A perusal of the charts of well-known artists reveals an abundance of Venus-Neptune contacts. Now, I went to art school for creative writing. I did 2 graduate degrees in creative writing. I've got a Venus-Neptune trine. I have seen so many charts with Venus-Neptune contacts that seem to naturally incline people toward the arts, dance, whatever it may be. So I'll say that that is one of the great things, and something Liz goes on in this chapter to say a lot about with respect to how to use or work with the energy constructively. Can you channel it into art and creativity? Because in the realm of art and beauty and dance, it's as though there is an arena set aside for the temporary attempt to embody something divine. We're channeling something as we dance. We're channeling something as we paint or write or perform or sing or even just listen to music or take art in. We are in the theater, and in that theater, catharsis is allowed because we come very close to touching something ideal in art and in beauty. So one great antidote to the restlessness or the delusions of grandeur with Venus-Neptune is art, or even creative romantic escapades. Like, this is why, like, I'm very deliberate about date nights with my wife when Venus-Neptune come around, and we just make sure really not to get into argumentative spaces about what each person is lacking against some ideal standard. Like, as soon as that starts coming up around Venus-Neptune, I'm like, let's just hold off. Let's just wait a second. And no, we're both, my wife's a double Taurus, I'm a Taurus rising, both very earthy Venusian people for the most part. So we're able to keep it pretty grounded, but it is fun to get swept up in it too. We don't have to be so afraid. I think Liz is a psychological astrologer who's working often with people who are dealing with problematic patterns with planets. And so this is the point of view she's coming from. But anyway, with all these potential pitfalls, Venus-Neptune possesses and can create extraordinary magic. Its delicacy, poetry, romantic sensibilities generate exalted visions of love and harmony, which may find their way into creative products graced with great beauty. The deep unhappiness which the aspect so often reflects in personal life is not, contrary to Venus-Neptune's own view, a karmic inevitability or the signature of a higher spirituality. More often than not, it is a product of an Oedipal conflict strongly colored by Neptune's mythic dreams and remains a psychological inevitability as long as its dynamics are unconscious. And you see, that's the whole idea of reading this, is to try to bring attention to a dynamic that it's easy to get grabbed by, as we use that name for our grabbed series, right? It's easy to get grabbed by a transit like this. So we bring awareness to it, we ritualize our connection to it, and then it can be a dance. And the dance can be in the way we creatively live a life and the story that's unfolding. Even if some of these themes come up, the consciousness is what turns it into art. The consciousness is what helps us to avoid some of the darkest pitfalls, which I appreciate her for pointing out. If the individual can build a sufficient sense of self-worth as an ordinary human mortal and does not demand the impossible, Venus-Neptune can find contentment in occasional glimpses of Eden. That's the date night. That's the music. That's the theater. So I couldn't more highly recommend checking out the rest of that essay if you find it interesting. I hope that this was a useful meditation for a strong Venus-Neptune contact coming through this week. I forgot to promote something. I want to promote this really quick. This is a book called Divination, Oracles, and Omens. It's edited by Michelle Aroney and David Zeitlyn. They are academics who put together this really nice compendium of planet-wide divinatory traditions. Cartomancy in Europe, Buryat Mongolian card divination, Khmer divination, Zande divination. These are African basket divination. If you want just a really nice resource of the world's great divinatory traditions written from a wonderfully respectful couple of academics, they sent it to me, said, check it out. I get nothing for promoting this other than to say, if you're into divination, I think you'll really appreciate this really beautiful resource book on world divination traditions. Again, Divination, Oracles, and Omens. You can get it on Amazon, I believe. Anyway, that's it for today. Stick around for an informational video about year one coming up next. I hope you're having a great day. We'll see you again tomorrow. Bye. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking around. I'm excited to tell you about our upcoming program, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. It is our first year course in Hellenistic astrology that begins at the end of June. June 22nd is our starting date. I'm going to take you over to the course page to tell you more about the program and what you will learn while you are in it. So here we go over to the Nightlight Astrology website. You can find this at nightlightastrology.com. Click on the courses tab, go to the first year course. Now, this program is ideal for people who maybe have a little bit of background already in astrology. Maybe you've done some studying on your own independently, taken some courses or webinars and workshops, but you're looking to deepen your understanding of astrology. And maybe Hellenistic astrology in particular has been calling to you. I'll tell you more about what Hellenistic astrology is in a minute, but on the first year course page, you're going to find everything that the course includes. I want to make the structure of the course clear first, and then at the end, I'm going to tell you 5 reasons that I think anyone might have for studying astrology, and you can see if you check any of those boxes. First of all, there are 30 classes on the year. It's just a little under a year-long program with 30 webinars. Every webinar is 2 to 3 hours long, including a lively Q&A and conversational section after we finished our lesson for the day. Each of those lessons I lead personally through live webinars, so you can attend those live. If you want to follow along at your own pace in your own time on your own schedule, you can always look at the recordings and take those in. And I'm going to show you what the class page looks like so you can see how you can interact with the course as uniquely and creatively as you want to. But you can either attend the live webinars or listen to the recordings or audio or video. In between major units of study within those 30 classes, we have separate classes outside of the 30 classes that are essentially tutoring sessions led by our staff, our course directors. We have 3 of them for our first year program, 3 tutors that help me guide every single class you're in and lead study sessions, and are also staffing an interactive group forum discussion where you can ask questions, look at charts, practice what you're learning with all of your classmates and with tutors there to help you. They'll always answer questions within a business day. So it's a really well-staffed, well-structured program. In between those major units of study and the breakout sessions, we also have guest speakers that come in throughout the year that you get free access to. The recordings are archived for you in your class folders. So you're getting people within our curriculum. And you're also getting to visit with some astrologers who are outside of the Nightlight School, but we really admire their work, and so we bring them in. You also have a ton of bonus material. With every lesson, we have recommended quizzes, study guides, optional reading. And that allows people who are really, really, intense, deep, like studious types to go as far as you want to with the material, while other people who are maybe, content to take things in at, just kind of taking in the classes, that's there for you too. So you can kind of go as deeply as you want to. The class, as the year goes on, goes through major units of study in ancient Hellenistic astrology. So if you're not familiar with ancient Hellenistic astrology, this is the earliest form of horoscopic astrology. This is where the astrology that you've probably learned today comes from originally. And that makes some of its features unique. Like, for example, ancient astrologers utilized whole sign houses. We study why they used whole sign houses, how they used them, and we study the why behind really everything: houses, signs, planets, aspects, dignities, essential and accidental dignities, delineation approaches. How do you read and predict within a natal chart? All of those theoretical areas of astrology, we not only learn how to do, but we learn the why behind it. And this is what I think people find most empowering about the course, is that ancient astrology really helps to give you the rationale for everything so that you have the insight available to go off script. What I mean by that is, like, let's say you're learning about a sign, Aries or Taurus or a Gemini, something like that. Ancient astrology won't just give you a list of the adjectives or keywords or descriptions of, say, a sign or a planet. It will give you an underlying philosophical explanation that then allows you to extrapolate from it the kinds of lists that you read in textbooks, which means you'll have an understanding of why everything on a list in a textbook is there in the first place. And you'll also have the insight and creativity available to add things to the list that are a part of your own unique intuition and contribution to astrology. And this is what ancient astrologers wanted students of astrology to learn, the why behind everything. So this is a class where even though you're seeing things like planet signs, houses, dignities, aspects, and you're like, oh, I've already learned about those things. Not if you haven't studied Hellenistic astrology. I don't mean to sound condescending, but like truly, most people's experience coming through this program is, wow, I had no idea all that I didn't know about the roots of everything that I've understood thus far about astrology. So it really is about digging into the philosophical core of why we do everything. And then you have greater intuitive and creative capacity as an astrological craftsman or craftswoman. So anyway, that's a brief explanation of why I think Hellenistic astrology is important. Not to mention that ancient astrology was really focused on our ability to accurately describe and predict things in the realm of karma, fate, and destiny, whereas modern astrology's hallmark and strength is psychological depth. And so when you put the two together in our program, which is why it's called Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic, I think you have something really special. So on that note, you can see everything that we cover here. So there's a video with some of our alumni you can watch. Everything is there on the page. Now, there are 5 reasons that I want to touch on briefly before I tell you about your payment options and need-based tuition. These are 5 reasons to study astrology that if you mark any of these boxes, especially if you mark several of them, then I think it's a good indication that you might be ideal for this program, might be an ideal fit. So the first one is if you find that astrology has become a part of your daily, weekly, monthly, yearly spiritual practice, it is a part of how you lead an inner life, then there is nothing more empowering than deepening your connection to that language, because that puts you more in the driver's seat. It's always good to have astrologers that you rely on, teachers that you listen to, get a little objective perspective, especially when you're looking at your own chart through a reading. But there's really nothing more empowering than learning to speak the language at a deeper level for yourself. And if that calls to you, if you want to understand things and be able to speak more confidently and clearly about this sacred language that you love, and this is a great reason to take a structured program. Number 2 is that you feel called to read charts for people. And look, not everyone who takes our programs is on a professional track, but we have 4 years worth of professional training programs at Nightlight that will prepare you to read professionally for others if that's the path that you're on. Maybe you don't even know if you're on that path. That's fine too. Many people take our programs just for the sake of their own personal enrichment. And again, to be kind of more in the driver's seat with respect to your astrological journey. You have more of an understanding. You can be more confident in reading symbols and experiencing transits with your own understanding that you've cultivated. But sometimes people want to read for other people. This will definitely set you up to do that. We have a certification track where you can take exams at the end of every year. They're optional. You don't have to if you're not on that level of interest. Number 3, you have done a lot of self-study. You've heard things from here and there, but you're looking to bring it all together. It is overwhelming to study astrology on your own. So if you want organization, structure, and coherence, what you're getting in this program is going on 15 years of training astrologers, 15 years of developing curriculum that has in mind the overwhelm that many people experience. And this program is structured year 1, year 2, year 3, however far you want to go with our curriculum, to give you an organized, structured, coherent way of understanding the history and language of astrology from both ancient times to modern times in all of the vastness that the field includes. And also, as we go, we want to give you the confidence that you are a part now of an astrological lineage. Astrology has always been practitioner-based. Coming through Nightlight, you are going to have the opportunity to feel aligned with a lineage. If you like my work, if you feel aligned with the way I speak the language, then this might be a good reason to come study with us. Now, if you're seeking the why behind things, if you're like, yeah, that's interesting, I get it, I understand, but why? Why signs? What's the difference between a sign and a house? Why do they ever come up with a sign and a house? What's the distinction philosophically? Why does Mars represent this? Why does Mars in this sign represent that? If you are someone who feels empowered by understanding the why behind things, you are going to love this program, because that's how I am as a teacher. That's how I am as a person. And that's what this program is really all about. Number 5, you are looking for astrological community. Look, I think Nightlight is unique in terms of the kind of warmth, acceptance, safety, and inclusiveness that our community includes intellectually, spiritually. We are really pride ourselves on being a peaceful kind of family. I'm a Cancer, right? So it's kind of a family-oriented environment. So anyway, I will end it there. If you check any of those boxes, you may want to consider studying with us. Now, I'm going to take you over to two things. I want to show you the dashboard. So here is the Thinkific page. You're going to join this. And on your dashboard, you're going to find any courses that you've enrolled in at Nightlight, and there are many, so you may end up in being involved in multiple courses, and you'll find that they're all there on your dashboard. Click on one of them, and it will take you in. You're going to find that on the left-hand side, there's orientation instructions, course information, class links, and calendar, all the technical stuff you need to know when you join the course. And then you're going to find that there's, when you go through the lessons, that the lesson includes the video, the audio, the slides, the transcripts, the Q&A box text if you couldn't make it live and see what people were talking about, flashcards, homework, a bonus PDF with all sorts of additional recommended reading, bonus videos, additional video links for bonus material. So every single time that you want to visit something within the course, everything is nicely organized. So you can see here, I'm going to pause this before it starts going, but you can embed the video right there. It's embedded and you can watch it. And then if you wanted to, you could also, right here, you could also download the video and watch it on your own device. And that's same for the audio as well. And then as you go, you'll see all of the lessons are laid out. The study sessions are also recorded if you can't make those live. So everything is nicely arranged on the website for you. And that makes it a course that if you wanted to take 3 years to accomplish, you could take 3 years to accomplish. If you want to take it for the sake of getting certified, you have the full year plus an additional year to take the exam. So, 2 years total that we give people if you're on a professional track. But most people complete the program in a year. And a lot of people, over 50% of our students go on to our year 2 and then our year 3 and horary programs as well. A final thing I'm going to show you is right here. You're going to find here is the enrollment options at the bottom of the first year course page. Again, this is at nightlightastrology.com, and you're going to click on the first year course, go to the bottom. The early bird payment saves you several $100s off the cost of the course. That's available till May 15th. Early bird installment plan saves you on the installment plan, regular cost of the course. That's also only available until May 15th. And then need-based tuition. All of our programs include a need-based option where we give you a sliding scale and we say, you pick your monthly tuition number within this sliding scale, which is greatly reduced off the normal tuition price. That is for people who are on a fixed or limited income, receiving disabilities, single mom, whatever the case might be. We want to make sure that nobody's priced out of studying astrology. So you don't have to feel any shame. If that is you, if you need help, if you want to take this, but you need to make it work within a tight budget, we get it. Times are tough right now. We don't think people should be priced out of studying a sacred subject like astrology. So we've been offering need-based pricing for 15 years. Nightlight is a donation-based school. It started that way. We have a sliding scale, so it's kind of like donation. You get to choose your rate anyhow. So if that's something that will help you, please use it. Thank you for listening to this. I hope it gave you a really deep and comprehensive introduction to what the course is all about and why you might find it exciting to come study with us starting at the end of June. So any questions you have about the program as you're visiting the course, email us, info@nightlightastrology.com. We'll be glad to talk about anything that you have questions about. We are here and we have a wonderful staff of people at Nightlight who will be a part of your learning experience and are all glad to help you. All right, that's it. We'll see you again later. Bye.